Hey there, and welcome to a deep dive into a topic I know we've all pondered at some point,
hmm
authenticity.
hmm
What does it really mean to be authentic, and how can we tap into its power in a way that actually makes our lives better?
And that's the key, isn't it? Going beyond the buzzword to really understand the core elements of authenticity and how they can play out in a practical, tangible way.
Absolutely. We've got some great research and real-world examples to dig into today, so get ready to unlock the secrets of your most genuine self.
Okay.
Now, I feel like we hear the phrase, be yourself, all the time, but it's easier said than done right.
Right.
What are we actually striving for when we talk about authenticity?
You've hit on something crucial. It's not just about letting loose and doing whatever comes naturally. True authenticity runs deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about consciously aligning your actions with your deepest values and beliefs, that inner compass that guides your decisions and relationships.
So there's an element of self-awareness there, really knowing yourself inside and out.
Precisely. Self-awareness forms the foundation. Think of it like this. Imagine you're navigating a vast, uncharted territory. Your self-awareness is like having a detailed map.
Okay.
It helps you understand the terrain of your own thoughts, feelings, and motivations.
Okay. I'm starting to see how that inner compass analogy works. But what about the messier parts of ourselves?
hmm
The insecurities, the fears, those don't exactly scream authenticity, do they?
You've touched on another critical dimension, vulnerability. And you're right, it can feel risky to let people see our imperfections. But what's fascinating is that research shows vulnerability is actually a catalyst for deeper connection.
How so? That seems counterintuitive. Wouldn't we want to hide those flaws to be more likable?
It's tempting to think so, but here's where it gets interesting. Vulnerability triggers a cascade of physiological and social responses. When we share something vulnerable, it often triggers empathy and a release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone,
Wow.
in both ourselves and the person listening. This creates a sense of trust and shared humanity that wouldn't be possible if we only presented a perfectly polished facade.
So when we're brave enough to be vulnerable, we're actually forging stronger bonds without even realizing it.
Yeah,
But let's be real, there are times when holding back feels easier, especially when society often rewards us for projecting an image of perfection.
absolutely. It's a constant balancing act, and the pressure to conform can be immense. But this is where the third element of authenticity comes in: integrity. And this is where the real magic happens.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this integrity piece.
Integrity is about aligning your actions with those values we talked about, even when it's difficult or inconvenient. It's about showing up as your true self, even, and perhaps especially when it's tempting to take the easier path.
So it's about walking the talk, not just knowing the right words to say.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Self-awareness is knowing your true north, vulnerability is sharing your compass, and integrity is actually following it no matter the terrain. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
I love it. Okay, so we've established that being authentic means aligning with our true selves, embracing vulnerability, and living with integrity. But why should we go through all that effort? What's the payoff?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And thankfully, research offers compelling evidence for why authenticity is worth striving for.
So we're not just talking about some feel-good self-help concept here.
Right.
There's actual data backing up the benefits of authenticity.
Absolutely. And the findings are pretty remarkable. Studies show that people who embrace their authentic selves report significantly higher levels of well-being, greater life satisfaction, and even stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
Okay, so less stress,
Yeah.
more genuine connections, a greater sense of purpose.
Hmm.
Sign me up for team authenticity. But let's be real.
Sure.
It's not always easy to live this way, is it? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it feels safer to just blend in, fly under the radar. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
You've hit on a very real challenge. It's natural to crave acceptance, and sometimes that means conforming to social norms or expectations. But the irony is that often the most magnetic and influential individuals are those who dare to be different, who embrace their authentic selves, even when it means standing out from the crowd.
That makes me think of people like artists and innovators who weren't afraid to break the mold and express their unique perspectives.
Exactly. Think about someone like Frida Kahlo. She didn't shy away from expressing her pain, her heritage, her unique perspective on the world. And that authenticity resonated with people on a profound level. It's what makes her art so powerful even today.
So how do we tap into that kind of courage? How do we overcome those internal doubts and external pressures to really step into our authentic selves?
It's a journey, not a switch we can flip overnight. One powerful strategy is to cultivate what we might call a support system for our authenticity.
Okay, I like the sound of that. What does building that support system look like?
Well, first and foremost, it involves challenging those negative self-talk patterns, that inner critic that tells us we're not good enough, not worthy enough.
Oh, you mean like when that little voice pops up and says, don't speak up, you'll sound stupid, or just go with the flow, don't rock the boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those thoughts can be incredibly limiting. So instead of letting them run the show, we need to practice what's called cognitive reframing. Basically, it's about catching those negative thoughts and consciously choosing to reframe them in a more positive and empowering light.
So if I'm constantly criticizing myself for not being perfect, I might try reframing that to, hey, I'm a work in progress and that's okay.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about shifting from self-criticism to self-compassion.
Mm.
Remember, you're human. You're allowed to make mistakes, to have flaws, to be a work in progress.
That's such a good point. We're often way harder on ourselves than we would ever be on a friend. And speaking of friends, surrounding yourself with the right people is a huge part of that support system, right?
Absolutely. The people we spend our time with have a profound impact on our thoughts, feelings, and ultimately our actions. Seek out relationships with people who lift you up, who encourage you to be your best self, not a watered-down version of yourself.
It's like having your own personal cheer squad for authenticity.
I love that.
Yeah.
And just like any good team, you need boundaries to protect your energy and stay true to yourself.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying that setting boundaries is actually an act of self-care when it comes to authenticity.
Absolutely.
Oh.
If certain environments or relationships consistently make you feel like you have to shrink yourself or put on a mask, it might be time to reassess those boundaries.
That's a good reminder. Sometimes you have to create some distance, even if it's just temporary, to protect your own well-being and sense of self.
Exactly. And on the flip side, actively seek out environments and relationships where you can truly shine, where your authentic self is celebrated, not just tolerated.
This has been so eye-opening.
Oh,
Okay, so we've talked about what authenticity is, why it matters, and even some strategies for overcoming the hurdles. But I'm curious, how does this all play out in the workplace? Can you really be your authentic self at work?
that's such an important question because many of us spend a significant portion of our lives at work. And the answer is a resounding yes. Authenticity can be a game changer in a professional setting.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How so?
Well, when leaders embrace authenticity, it creates a ripple effect throughout the entire organization.
So you're saying that authentic leadership leads to a more authentic workplace culture overall.
Exactly. Think about it. When leaders are willing to be vulnerable to share their stories, their struggles, it creates a sense of trust and connection. It makes them more relatable and approachable.
That makes sense. It's hard to relate to someone who seems perfect and untouchable.
Okay.
But when leaders show their human side, it makes them seem more real and trustworthy.
Precisely. And when people feel seen and valued for who they are, it boosts morale, engagement, even creativity. It creates a more positive and productive work environment for everyone.
So not only is it good for the individual, it's good for the company as a whole. Do you have any examples of what this looks like in action?
Absolutely. Imagine a leader who's open about their own struggles with work-life balance. That vulnerability gives permission for others to be honest about their own challenges, which can lead to more supportive policies and a healthier work environment for everyone.
I like that. So it's not just about being authentic for yourself, it's about creating a space where others can be authentic too.
Exactly. And that kind of authenticity can be contagious. It can transform a workplace from a collection of individuals into a thriving community.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say I'm sold on the benefits of bringing my authentic self to work. What are some practical tips for actually doing that?
Well, just like we talked about earlier, it starts with self-awareness. What are your unique strengths and values? How can you bring more of that to the table? What are you passionate about? What makes you tick?
I see. So it's about identifying what makes you you, and then finding ways to let those qualities shine through in your work.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to share your story. Your experiences, your perspectives, they're all valuable. They add richness and depth to your work, and they help others connect with you on a deeper level.
So sharing personal anecdotes that relate to your work can actually be a good thing.
Absolutely. It humanizes you, makes you more relatable. People connect with stories. Just make sure it's appropriate for the context and the audience, of course.
Yeah.
You don't want to overshare or make it all about you.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot between being professional and being personable.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of just being open to different perspectives. Encourage open communication in your team and create a space where people feel safe to speak their minds, to disagree respectfully, to share their ideas without fear of judgment.
That makes a lot of sense. When people feel heard and respected for who they are, it fosters a sense of belonging and encourages them to bring their whole selves to the table. It creates a virtuous cycle of authenticity where everyone feels empowered to show up as their best selves.
Precisely. And that's ultimately what we're talking about here, creating a world where people feel safe and supported in being their most genuine selves, both inside and outside of the workplace.
This has been incredibly insightful. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of what authenticity really means and why it's so essential for our well-being, our relationships, and even our success.
It's been a pleasure exploring these nuances with you. It's a topic that's both timely and timeless.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, what's one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with today?
If you're feeling the pressure to conform, to hide your true self, remember this. The world needs your authentic voice, your unique perspective. Your story matters. Don't be afraid to share it.
That's such a powerful reminder. We often underestimate the impact our authenticity can have on others just by being ourselves, by embracing our quirks and vulnerabilities. We give others permission to do the same.
And that's how we create a ripple effect of authenticity that spreads outwards, touching the lives of those around us.
This has been such an empowering deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to you, our amazing listener, thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. Remember, even small steps towards authenticity can make a world of difference. Keep shining your light, and until next time, stay curious.